Okay, so good morning or afternoon to Ephesus Junior Academy. My name is Jonathan Grant, and I was asked to give a Black History presentation to you all just to talk a little bit about the way in which you as children can impact your communities and the way in which you and children can, you as children, can also be a part of Black history. And so I'm going to share my screen so that hopefully you can see it. Let's see if we can do this here. So I'm going to share my screen. And here we go. Okay. And see, my computer's a little slow. Should be coming up soon. There we go. All right. So the title of my presentation is Children for Change, Black History Month. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the ways in which children have actually participated in shaping our history and shaping our culture, okay? So to begin, the first thing I want you to do, I want you to kind of get physical a little bit. I want you to stand up if you can, and if you have to pause this, teachers, to get the students to stand up, that would be great. I just want to kind of get everybody out of their seats. So I want you to stand up. I want you to stretch your hands in the air, okay? I want you to stretch your hands in the air, and then you can either use your thumb or you can use your index finger, and I want you to point yourself and repeat after me. It's a song by a rapper named Nas, and it is a song for children that says, and I'm gonna repeat the first 4 lines, and what you do is you're gonna repeat after me. So I'm gonna say, I know I can, and then you say, I know I can. Then I'm gonna say, be what I wanna be. You're gonna say, be what I wanna be. I'm gonna say, if I work hard at it. You're gonna say, if I work hard at it. I'm gonna say, I'll be where I wanna be. And you say, I'll be where I wanna be. All right, ready? So I'll do it, and then you're gonna repeat after me. I know I can be what I wanna be. If I work hard at it, I'll be where I wanna be, okay? And that is the mantra, that is the idea that we think about when we think about the ways in which children have impacted our history and impacted our culture. And so I just thought that was a good way to just kind of get us up, kind of give us some affirmations as we go into this presentation. So again, as you all know, this month is what? What is this month called? It's called Black History Month. And in this month, we celebrate the history of Black people. We celebrate our history from being in Africa, then to being brought over to the Americas. We talk about our history through oppression, through struggles, through triumphs, and we even talk about the things that we are doing in the present day to continue our struggle for freedom. And so it is very important that Black History Month is celebrated because it celebrates our identity. It celebrates us as a people. But a lot of times when we think about Black History Month, generally what we think about is we think about the ways in which adults have shaped our history. So we talk about Harriet Tubman. We may talk about Frederick Douglass. We may talk about Martin Luther King Jr. or Marcus Garvey or Angela Davis or Malcolm X or the Honorable Minister Farrakhan or many other people, right? Ella Baker, so many other people that, that we might think about. And that's great because adults have done a lot to help shape our history. But oftentimes what we don't talk about are the ways in which both the leaders, right, Dr. King, Harriet Tubman, Malcolm X, and many others, what these people were like as children, and how even as children, many of these Black history leaders were making an impact in their communities, and they were doing great things. Also, we don't talk a lot about what children today are doing to make a difference for our people and for our community. So that is what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to introduce to you some people that you may know, some Black history leaders, but also some people you may not know. And I'm going to show you and tell you some of the things that they did as children that actually helped them become the Black historical figures that they are today. So first person we're going to talk about is a person by the name of King Tut. The one thing we always must remember when we're talking about Black history is we never begin our history with slavery. One of my former teachers, former mentors, he wasn't directly, but he was a mentor to some of my mentors. Dr. Asa G. Hilliard said, when we tell our story, we must never let them begin our story with slavery. Our story does not begin with Jim Crow. It does not begin with civil rights. It does not begin with slavery. Our story begins in Africa. And in Africa, we were everything from kings and queens to merchants, to inventors, to farmers, to lawyers, to teachers, to doctors. We were everything, right? And so there was a king by the name of King Tut. He was the king of Egypt. And at this time, Egypt was the most powerful country, or if not the most powerful, one of the greatest countries in the world at that time. And even at the very young age of 8, they don't know if he was 8 or 9 years old, but he was either 8 or 9 years old, he became king of Egypt. And with his advisors, he restored the culture of Egypt, and he restored the temples in Egypt. Egypt was falling off, and he brought Egypt back to what it was prior to him being a king. So King Tut was only 8 or 9 years old when he did this, right? How many of you are 8 or 9 years old? Raise your hand. That means that even at your age, you have the capacity with help to run an entire country. That is just how beautiful and brilliant you are, all right? So this is a part of your history. Also, another person who was a part of history was a woman. You may not know this person. Her name was Josephine Boyd Bradley. And she desegregated Greensboro High School in the 1960s, in the 1950s, either 50s or 60s, right? At this time, in Greensboro, North Carolina, Greensboro High School was all white. And she was the first African-American to enter into this high school. She was mistreated. She had ketchup poured on her. She was talked about. She was teased. You can even see in this picture, she's isolated, sitting by herself. How would you feel if you had to sit by yourself and everybody else in the school was hanging out and laughing and becoming friends? That wouldn't make you feel good at all. But this is what she did so that we all could have the opportunity to go to any school that we want to go to, okay? Later on, as she grew up, she went on to go to college and receive several degrees, and she became a professor of history at Clark Atlanta University, and she was my teacher. So she told me the stories of what it was like desegregating the public school in Greensboro, North Carolina, and she passed away in 2015. And so Josephine Boyd Bradley, at a very, very young age in high school, made history, okay? Also, this is another woman. Her name is Claudette Colvin. And Claudette Colvin she was around 15 years old. And you probably have heard of Rosa Parks. How many of you know who Rosa Parks is? Raise your hand. Well, somebody tell me or tell the teachers can call on someone. Who was Rosa Parks and why was Rosa Parks important? You can pause the video here and you can talk there. Talk about why Rosa Parks was important. All right. Very good, very good. So we know Rosa Parks as the woman who did not give up her seat on a bus, and she fought and resisted so that people can sit anywhere they wanted to on the bus in Montgomery. Um, and the reason why that was important, it wasn't just about the bus, but really it was a way to spark the civil rights movement. So it was planned. They planned for her to sit down. They planned for her to go to jail. And they basically, the people in Montgomery just wanted to create a reason to start this boycott and start this movement. Well, what a lot of people don't know is months before Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat on the bus, a woman by the name of Claudette Colvin, who was only 15 years old, was actually the first Black woman that we know of in history to not give up her seat for a white person before Rosa Parks did it. She was also arrested. She was also taken to jail, and she was only 15 years old. Rosa Parks was a lot older, but Claudette Colvin was only 15 years old. Raise your hand if you're 15 years old. Some of you may be a little bit younger, but you may have a brother or a sister or a cousin who's 15. And so even at this young age, she made history. How do you think she felt when she got arrested at 15 years old, this young woman? How do you think she felt? She was probably very, very, very afraid. You would probably be afraid if big police officers were coming up to you at 15 or 14 or 13 and they put your hands behind your back and they're taking you to jail. But she stood by her choice. She did not sit down. She stood up and she would not give up her seat on the bus. And she did that because she knew that that was the right thing to do, right? All right. Now, everybody, pretty much everybody knows who this person is. Who is this person? Martin Luther King Jr. And we hear about Martin Luther King a lot. He was a civil rights leader. He gave the I Have a Dream speech. Dr. King is a very significant part of Black history. But one thing that we rarely talk about when it comes to Dr. King, we talk about a lot of the things he did when he was older, but we don't talk a lot about what he did when he was young. Dr. King was a part of movements. He was resisting. He believed in social justice and equality even as a young child, and he was extremely smart. He was so smart that he actually skipped the 9th grade and was enrolled in Booker T. Washington High School, which actually led him to, at the age of 15, pass the entrance exam and go to Morehouse College at the age of 15. So he was able to pass the entrance exam and enroll in college at 15 years old. And this was in the early part of the 20th century. This was before computers. This may have even been before calculators. So this shows you how smart he was. So if you're smart and if you're paying attention in school, if you're paying attention to your teachers, if you're doing what your parents are telling you to do, you're building a strong foundation for you to do something great in the future, right? So it's extremely important for you to continue on the beautiful, brilliant paths that you all are on right now. Because the Dr. King that we know of now, the older person, that was created by the foundations that he and his mother and father and family and friends and community built for him at a very young age. And then there was a man by the name of Fred Hampton. Fred Hampton was the leader of a group called the Black Panther Party in Chicago. And Fred Hampton was very, very powerful. He brought together people from various groups, black people, white people, poor people all over Chicago to fight for equality for working class and poor and Black people in Chicago, right? He also was a part of the Black Panther Party who put together what they call free breakfast programs. Basically, they gave out breakfast to anybody in the community, all the children in the community who needed it before they went to school. Imagine if you had to go to school and you didn't have breakfast. How would you feel? Would you be able to pay attention in class if you did not receive breakfast? No matter how smart you are, right? No matter how smart you are, if you don't have breakfast, You could be really smart, but the only thing you're thinking about is what? What's in my stomach? I don't have nothing to eat. I'm hungry. Yes, I know the answer, but first I got to eat something. So now I can think about what it is I needed. And the Black Panther Party knew that a lot of the children in those poor communities did not get breakfast. So they said, how can these kids learn? And they ain't got no breakfast. So they gave free breakfast to kids in the community every single day. And Fred Hampton was one of those people. But in fact, Fred Hampton used to do it when he was 10 years old, when he was one of those kids. So he was 10 years old helping and cooking breakfast for the kids in his community, actually before the Black Panthers started doing it all together. He also led protests for Black students who he felt were being mistreated at his schools. And he told officials that they needed to hire more Black teachers and more Black administrators. And he was doing this in high school. In high school. Some of you may be in high school right now or maybe close to high school, some may not. But just think about the fact that even as a teenager, he's leading these protests and he's making change in his community, okay? Even when he would go on to college, because he knew the law so well, when him and his Black Panther friends would follow the police in their community, they listened to what Fred Hampton said because he was such an amazing, he had such an amazing mind and he knew the law very well. So they would use that to their defense when they would come into contact with the police who were trying to hurt them. Fred Hampton was also active in the NAACP and he became a leader in the NAACP. So he was a very, very powerful boy and then later on man. Now, so we've talked a lot about history. We've talked a lot about what's happened in the past, but Black history is also about the Black present, what's happening in the present day. And in the present day, there are young people like yourselves who are still making history, who are still doing amazing things. Who knows this young lady right here? Her name is Michaela Omer, and she's 4 years old. And one day, Michaela was stung by a bee. She was stung by a bee. And she wondered why that happened. And so she started to use her grandmother's recipe and she created this company called Me and the Bees and Me and the Bees Lemonade. Because I think she also found out that once a bee stings you, then they die. So now at the age of 13, she has created a whole lemonade company that is used in Whole Foods markets, in restaurants, in delivery companies. And then she takes a percentage of her profits and she donates them to organizations that work to save bees from being extinct. And she also spends a lot of time educating others on what they can do to help bees so that they don't become extinct. So and she started this at 4 years old, has her own business now. And then lastly, there's this young man, his name is Naeem Hudson. If you have social media or if your parents or siblings have social media, you may have seen this young brother. He's 11 years old. And he was a victim of bullying when he was 10 years old. He was being bullied. And sometimes when people are bullied, the first thing that they want to do is fight back. But sometimes when you fight back, then you might get in trouble, right? You may get suspended, you may get written up. And so what Naeem or what he's called King Na, what he decided to do was take his experience and put it on Instagram. And he became a motivational speaker. And now he has over 257,000 followers on Instagram, and he makes inspirational videos to help other children who are dealing with bullying. And he also travels around the world giving speeches to children and telling them about education and love and kindness everywhere he goes. So as you can see, children have in the past and continue to make history all the time. Because February is not just about Black history, February is about Black future. And you all are the future. Because our future, the future of our community, the future of our race is determined by what you all are going to do. So my question to you is, what are you going to do to help make history? What are you going to do to help make Black history? Some of you may be saying, I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do to help make history or help make Black history, Mr. Grant. I don't know how to start a breakfast program. I don't know how to get online and have 257,000 followers. I just don't know, right? Well, this is what you can do to help figure out what it is that you can do to help make history. One of the things you can do is find out what you like to do. What do you like to do right now? What are some things that you're passionate about? Okay. And then the second thing is think about how your passion can help other people. What you're doing, how can that lead you to now help other people? It can be something in sports, it can be something in music, it could be writing, it could be reading, drawing, dancing, anything. Also, start small. That's one thing that we learned from all these great people, Dr. King, Claudette Cove, and King Tut. Well, King Tut might have been a little bit different, but the rest of them, they started small, right? You don't have to come out and tomorrow be, the leader of an entire movement, but you can start small and be a leader at your school, be a leader at your church, be a leader in your community, be a leader among your friends. You can start small, but guess what? You dream big, okay? You dream big, right? So think about what you want to be when you're 15 and 20 and 25 and 30 and 40 and 50 and 60. When you're older and where you want your life to be like, but don't think that you have to get there right now. That takes time. And you do small things to get to the big thing. And then see if there's a trusting adult that can help you. Your mom or your dad or your grandmother or grandfather, aunt, uncle, guardian, friend, teacher, older friend or parents, friends, brothers or sisters, or somebody who can help you get to the point where you are now starting your dreams and turning your passion into your dreams. And then lastly, ask God to help you walk in your purpose. So pray and ask God to help you find out what you're supposed to do to help make history and to help make life better for our people, for Black history, and then in addition to that, the rest of the world. And so with that being said, I really hope that I've stopped sharing. I hope that it's coming back. Okay, so in the slideshow. So there we go. All right. So I hope that you present our affirmation that we said at the beginning. I know I can be what I want to be. If I work hard at it, I'll be where I want to be. Okay. All right. So thank you all for having me. My name is Jonathan Grant. My mother is Wanda Grant. She is one of the assistant teachers here at Ephesus Junior Academy. And thank you all so much for listening to me. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful day.